Okay, welcome to the next session of Astrology Academy. And I am your host. And we also have a guest student, which, by the way, thank you for calling and reminding me every Sunday, or I would never get this done. Oh, it was so funny. I was going through, to me, my Bible of astrology. I mean, the one that I would wear out copies of these books so badly, I would literally have to duct tape the spine because they're out of print now, these books. And I mean, when I was learning and really, getting into them and everything, just they're so valuable. But even now, because you're constantly learning, I don't care how old you are, how long you've done this, you're always learning. It was so funny. I opened up the book and one of her things was notice the placement of, now we didn't know about ADHD back in the 60s. This astrologer, her name is Ivy Jacobson Goldstein. Okay. And when she wrote these books, you can tell when the screenshots that I'm going to show you in a second, she literally wrote her books on a typewriter. That's how old these things are. And so she didn't know about things like ADHD back then, but I opened up the book today as I'm getting ready for class. And she said, notice if you have planets like all in one house or if they're spread out all over your chart, which most of my planets are spread out all over my chart. And she said, this is a person that has many irons in the fire, as she called it. And I just started laughing because it's like, that's me. I've got 100 projects going, right?
Yeah, me too.
And then, and here's the difference though. The difference, my daughter literally has planets spread all over her chart. Okay. And they all aspect each other except her Saturn, which gives her no will, gives her no drive. With no Saturn, it's just literally like you're in terminal ADHD. And I swear to God, my daughter has really debilitating ADHD. I mean, she cannot function. It is so bad with her. And that's why I've gone the route of, we did try her briefly. I would not put her on the drugs, the Adderall, the Ritalin, would not do it. So briefly we tried Strattera with her. And, it just, with all her other health issues, it's just too difficult. So, I mean, this child literally could not will herself to do anything. I mean, and I understood as a parent, I'm like, God, she has no Saturn. So she really cannot like buck up and do something. There's, you know
Oh,
what I mean? With no drive, no will. Her Saturn, like for example, all of her planets around 19, 20 degrees. Okay. But then her Saturn's at 2. I mean,
oh,
there's no connection to her Saturn. And this is a child that literally will not do anything unless the house is on fire. She won't clean her room. She won't go to work. She won't go to school. I mean, and I know how debilitating it is for her. So
yeah,
now by progression, this is why progressions are important. I'll talk about that later, is because I do know that with progressions, she's eventually going to work her way out of it. But Saturn moves very slowly you know?
yeah.
So as you're adding a degree for a year, Saturn though moves very slowly. So it's going to take her, um, and I did tell myself this when she was young. I'm like, okay, she's going to get better with time, as her chart progresses. And sure enough, this year she's 34 years old now. She is starting to actually, I could have dropped dead. She actually went in the kitchen and cleaned the refrigerator. She has never done that in her life. And it's because her progressed chart, she's starting to come out of that cycle that
Oh,
she's been
good.
in. And so, sometimes, and that's why I want to be careful when people are looking at their natal chart to understand that it may be something you grow out of, you know? And the progressions will tell you when. When is somebody going to grow out of things, you know? Um, but I haven't found my ephemeris yet or got my printer out, so we're going to do about corrections next week. But I did find some of my Ivy books. And like I said, I just thought it was interesting to note that planets spread out all over the place, can be ADHD. And I'm like looking at my chart going, yep, that's true. But again, with progression, things change. And they might get worse, they might get better. You don't know, which is why you got to look at things, each year.
Uh,
Okay. But one of the things, my favorite book with Ivy is her book on horary astrology. Okay. So let me see if I can do a screen share. Can you see first house questions on your screen?
No.
All
Oh,
right.
yes, the
You can.
page. Yeah.
Okay. All right. First house is important with horary or with questions or with events. Okay. Because as I've told you, when you're doing phone calls, for example, if somebody calls you, they become the first house and everything around that first house. That's how you can tell a lot about who the person is that's calling you, where they're at, what's on their mind, that kind of thing, because they technically are the first house. So you look at the ascendant, you look at are there any planets in the first house? And you look at the rulers. That's one thing that drives me absolutely batty when I see people online going, but there's nothing in the house. No, there's rulers. It doesn't matter if the house doesn't have a planet in it because you're looking at the rulers. Where are the rulers?
Yeah.
What are the rulers? What are the rulers aspecting? And when you got dual rulers, for example, I showed you when I left the house to go to on a doctor visit, and there was a dual ruler on the first house, and I told you my daughter helped me out of the house. Now that's important, believe it or not, if you're doing something like a missing person or even a missing pet or a
Oh,
theft,
yeah.
because it matters if it was one or two or more persons. Now, dual can mean more than two, which is where it gets a little tricky.
Ah.
Because what I've noticed is the 11th house is multiples. Now, what I mean by that is the 11th house of multiples are, let's say it's an apartment building. You have many units in the apartment building. We don't know how many, but a multi-ruler, if the 11th house is involved, is crucial because it can tell you, oh, it might be an apartment building versus a house. Um, Multiples, the reason why multiples come up with groups, like self-help groups, like let's say they're going to a 12-step meeting or a group therapy meeting or, something where there's a group of people. It's not church because church is the ninth house, okay? But the 11th house is, let's say they're going to something with a group of friends or a group of multiple people or a convention or a trade show, something where there's multiples of people. The 11th house will come up with that. So when you're looking at multiples, also, are you looking at two or are you looking at more than two? If there's more than two, it will be the 11th house. And, this is why, to really get an accurate answer is time consuming because you really have to sit down and look at things and also see if the rule of three is there before you're solid on something because there might be things in there that just don't apply. They're just there and you've got to, sift that out. But the first house question, let's see, Ivy talks about first house questions are those relating to the personal self-interest of the querent, primarily and in a secondary sense, to the remaining persons and matters of the first. All right, let's see. The formula for strictly personal questions is simple to follow and something answer. I can't read that. I got to get my glasses fixed. Okay. Always take the ruler of the first cusp and note the house that it is in, which tells you at once what interests the querent most in relation to his question. Okay. Um, because that's the thing. When somebody's calling you with a question, they may have a lot of things on their mind, but the first house will tell you what is the most primary or what is the most important. It helps you sort of cut to the chase, you know? Um, you can also tell fears, balancing one against the other. Note whether the ruler is direct or retrograde, besieged, intercepted, or free, well placed by sign, which sounds like a foreign language. But as we get into this, you'll start to do this automatically. Afflicted or not by major or minor aspects and so on. This gives you a good overall picture so you can take everything into consideration. All right, you know what? Let's just say for the heck of it, we just started this meeting, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we started a meeting. Let's see what it looks like. I'm going to pull up a chart and we'll take a look at it go and see if anything applies here. Okay, yeah, it does. All right. Now, can you still see the screen? Are you seeing the chart now?
No, I see the screen. I see the
Okay.
book.
You see the book? Oh, it paused my screen sharing. All right. How do we unpause it? Huh. How do I unpause it? Come on. How do I unpause it?
Let's see.
It just, oh, there we go. Okay. All right.
Click
I'll pull up the
share again.
chart, screen. All right. Let's see if that works. Okay. Do you see a chart? No, you don't. Yeah, you do. Okay.
Now, yeah.
All right. You see a chart that has 28 Leo on the rising.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we can use this as an example. We just started a meeting and yeah, this fits, because, okay, one of the things I told you is that when people like get up and do things, that Mars will most of the time, Mars will, aspect the angles, which of
Oh,
course
yeah.
is the first and the seventh or the 10th and the fourth. All right. And it's interesting to note that we started the meeting with Mars at 29 degrees opposing the ascendant.
Oh, yep.
So, I mean, is it important again if you're trying to track somebody's movements, or if you're looking at an event, okay, it's important to note that because when Mars hits the angles is again when people get up and do things. I went from, sitting in bed with the television on to now I'm up doing this class. So that's, showing the Mars is I got up and did something.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, Now, but the ruler, what they're saying is for the ruler, like I'm the first house essentially, because I'm a Leo anyway, which is, because that tells me more. I'm the Leo here. Okay. We've got the sun in the seventh conjunct the nodes. All right, which tells me I was supposed to be doing the class today. I look at the nodes as like a bigger picture. If it's something's part of a bigger picture, destiny, fate, whatever you want to call it. If I meet someone when the node's aspecting me like that, I know that this is a very important meeting, or this is an important event. It's just a little
Oh,
side note to yourself that some things are part of a bigger picture.
yeah.
So I'm looking at Sun in the seventh, conjunct the node. What else have we got here? Um, we've got now aspects are usually within 8 degrees. Some people go to 10 degrees. I don't know. I don't, it depends on what you think. Now, I think to me, it's interesting though that, yeah, it's within 10 degrees, the Saturn Neptune in the eighth house of astrology. So yes, we're doing astrology. And I think it fits because we delayed, which is the Saturn. So there was a delay to the
Yeah.
meeting. And certainly it does aspect the ascendant. With the ascendant at 28 degrees and Saturn aspecting the ascendant, that tells me that we got to a late start, you know?
Yeah.
It is interesting to me we're talking about astrology and we've got Uranus moving up within 2 degrees of the midheaven. So, it tells
Oh,
me
yeah.
that we're going to get deeper into astrology with this class.
Nice.
Um, it tells me a lot. Also, Um, now, if I was to look at this and not know what's going on, I would say, oh, she's talking to a younger female, which is in the seventh, we have Mercury conjunct Venus. That tells me that the other person I'm talking to is a younger female, and you are
Ah,
younger than me, female. Okay,
yes.
great. You know, um, and certainly the Mars opposing ascendant tells me and this is important, like when you're having meetings with somebody and you kind of want to know, let's say you have a job interview, okay? It is kind of important to know the mood of the person that you're meeting with, all right? So now I'm okay, but I just said before we started, I'm cranky today, you know? And it's because, Mars opposing the ascendant is, yeah, I'm also in a hurry. It can be cranky or in a hurry with Mars.
Ah,
Something else that's interesting to me anyway is that, is that via combust? No. Okay. Well, I was just wondering because with the Mars opposing the angle, it also tells me that the person, which would be me, at 29 degrees is somebody who's at the end of their rope. That's the phrase that, you memorize with that, at the end of the rope,
Ah,
which means that this is a person who's getting ready to change something, leave something behind. So
ah,
it does show, and I am at that point. I am in the middle right now of making some very dramatic changes. So whenever you see 29, you know that this is a person who is really at the end of something and they're moving on to something better, you know? We've got the moon. It also says to look at where the moon is at. So we've got the moon at 23 Leo also right now. Okay.
yeah,
Um, I mean, it's just one of the things that you look at when you're looking at a phone call. Okay. All right. Let me see if I can go back to the screenshot where we're at the books now. Let me see. Share. All right. Let me go back to books. I got to get the hang of this anyway. Okay. So when you're doing a horary or an event, you look at everything to do with the first, like she's talking about. Like where is the ruler of the first? We saw it's in the seventh. Okay, now offhand, I would say that when it's in the seventh because seventh rules partnerships, and I'd say we become partners in this. So it's showing that yes, we have a partnership going with this. Okay.
oh, yeah,
And then it talks about mutual reception. All right, all these are terms that you may not think are important, but they are. So let me just address them. Is the ruler direct or retrograde? No, the sun is direct. Sun doesn't go retrograde, but Mercury's certainly retrograde. But is that the ruler of the first? No. Okay. Um, we looked at that. Now, is there an interception in the chart? Let me see if there's an interception in the chart. Yes, there is. Okay, that's interesting too, to me, because an interception means somebody's missing. All
oh,
right. Now, the student that was with us last week, Renata, she said she was going to come this week, but she's not here. So the chart is showing me somebody's missing,
oh,
and they are.
yeah,
So it's like, okay, do I think she's going to show up? No, not with the intercept. That tells me she's not going to show up. But that's okay. It just something to go back to your reading and like what's going on. All
yeah,
right. And I'm trying to give an example here. Go back to my screens. Come on. All right. How do I get back to my screens? Okay. Can you see the book now?
yes,
Okay. Um, Now let me see. We look for the interceptions. That again just tells you something or someone is missing. Whether it's relevant or not, again, depends on the situation. Um, Let me see. If you're trying, I will say this, if you're trying to reach someone to connect to them, you don't want to call them with an intercept in the chart because it means they're not going to be in. That's important, by the way, if you're setting up a meeting of some kind, because if there's an intercept, they're not going to show. So
oh,
you can save yourself a lot of time that way. Trust me. I used to do sales appointments, and I was able to know when this person was going to bail on me ahead of time. It saved me a great deal of time, you know? Let me see. And you just deliberately set your times where there's no intercepts. Now, mutual reception is a little bit trickier. Mutual reception is when, for example, you take a natural ruler like the sun or Leo. Leo's ruled by the sun. Okay. Let's say Venus is Libra. All right. Now, knowing that, let's say, for example, you're looking at a chart where the Venus is in Leo, but the sun is in Libra. All right. That is a mutual reception because what you have is you have one in the planet ruling the other. Okay. If that makes sense at all. Like if Venus rules Libra, okay, and the sun rules Leo, but then you find them in each other's rulers, if that makes sense, which would be sun in Libra, Venus in Leo. That's a
ah,
mutual reception.
okay,
Now, what happens is a mutual reception, again, let's say that you have a job interview and you have a meeting with Joe Smith. Okay, but you notice that the chart has a mutual reception. That means that somebody else is going to be there. Somebody else is going to say, hey, Joe couldn't make it. I'm doing the interview today.
Uh,
Now, in a missing person chart, it tells you that they thought they were meeting somebody and somebody else showed up.
oh,
Okay, so there are important reasons to like notice a mutual reception, but it when you have that, it's when something replaces something else. You'll see a mutual reception in bail bonds hearings, believe it or not, because sometimes people call you up, am I going to get bail? A mutual reception is yes, because then you're leaving the bond in your place. So it is something that when you do a bail of some kind, that's a mutual reception. So, or let's say you put your car in the shop and you get a loaner, you get another car that's not yours. I mean, so mutual reception shows you that something replaces something. It's just, something to look at in the chart, give you an idea what's going on. All right, now afflicted. Because something about afflictions. Well, I would say in our chart of the meeting that we're having, that Mars at 29 degrees opposing the rising, I'd say that's an affliction. You've got to look at what is considered an affliction. Um, Malefic aspects, which would be a square or an opposition, is considered an affliction. Then you've got the fixed signs, like 29 degrees of Taurus. And, there's charts that you can find online for this that show you all the different afflictions. 0 degrees of Aries is another affliction. A lot of natural disasters have happened with a 0 degrees Aries on the rising. Trying to think what else is an affliction. There's a chart somewhere you can look up that give you all the afflictions, but you just kind of make a mental note. Are there any afflictions to either the first house or the ruler of the first house or a planet in the first house? Because that's the person who is like making the call or, initiating the meeting. Or if it's you, the querent, that's the person asking the question. All right, now let's see. Mutual affliction, minor aspects. Okay. Okay, besieged. Believe it or not, I found this interesting to me because, you never know if these mean anything till you actually see it in a chart. So you see this thing besieged. What does that mean? Well, that means when your signifier is in between two malefics. Like, let's say, for example, in a horary chart, let's just say the moon. Okay. And let's say Pluto's on one side of you and Saturn's on the other. All right. So what that means is literally if the next aspect up and the next aspect down of your signifier are both malefics, then you are besieged. Okay. Now, I had a besiege come up one time when I was in going through my difficulty in my first marriage. He was having these violent episodes and I couldn't find a way out. He took my car, he got me fired. I literally had no way out. And so I was showing up as besieged at that moment. And that can happen by transit. It can happen in a horary chart. I mean, it can, if you see besieged, it means basically no way out, or you're surrounded by enemies.
oh,
Um, there was a besiege I remember when I went through a really, really scary time where it's connected with the Epstein case, and there were people that were being killed. And during that time, because I have some knowledge of that case, I was having weird things happen around my house. I was being watched and I was so scared. I remember I moved into this house. It was like a fortress. It had a fence all the way around it. I put cameras all the way so I could see every inch of the house. And I remember that I was just looking something up on Google Maps and I saw that someone had taken a photograph of my house like that day and put it on Google Maps. So I was definitely being watched, and watched by somebody with enough power to put my house on Google Maps. So
wow.
my chart at that time, I was being besieged. So now, does that mean you're going to be harmed? Not necessarily. I got through that period of time, but I was definitely besieged. I had the malefic planets on both sides of me. So, I mean, that's like the next question is just because you're besieged, does that mean the person's going to be really hurt or not? Hmm. Now, if you're doing a horary chart and you see the signifiers besieged, yes, you have to be careful. Besieged just means surrounded by enemies. It doesn't automatically mean harm, you know? Now, I put the cameras up so these people are watching me. They stayed out of camera vision, you know? So then I started getting the computer attacks. Granted, they were inconvenient, when my computer went down for a day, but then I was able to get them back up going again.
Yeah.
And then I had the strangest, oh my God, this is an example of besieged but not harmed. During this time, I get a knock on the door, and this lady, she had a van that said, my cable company. And she said, "Oh, I'm here to look at your computer." I'm like, "I didn't call you." She goes, "Well, we have you down for a visit." And I'm going, "I didn't call you." So I'm not going to let anybody in I haven't called, right?
Yeah.
Especially during this time. Now, this person had the van outside with the company that I have cable with. So it like
Oh,
looked legit, right?
yeah.
But I just, as an automatic rule, if I'm not expecting you, I'm not letting you in. And plus I knew my chart, I was being besieged at that time. So I'm like on guard, right? She leaves, of course, pissed off I wouldn't let her in. And then I called my cable company and I said, "Who was this woman at my door?" They didn't know anything about it. So
Oh,
whoever was watching me at that time was pretty desperate to get in my house, you know?
man.
I mean, to have a van, I was like, okay, definitely. And well, that tells me who it was. It obviously is connected with somebody in the government to do that.
Yeah.
Um, the good news is, of course, I was able to look at my own chart and see when this period was going to be over. So that's helpful to know, and I didn't see any actual physical harm. So yeah, it was difficult. And it's funny, the man that I believe was behind that died. And 2 weeks after he died, it stopped. All that surveillance stopped. So in my mind, I know who was behind it. But, I outlived him. Oh, well, you know. Did I lose
Yeah.
you? Are you still there? Okay. Oh, I heard a weird sound. All right.
Oh,
All right. Intercepted, direct retrograde besieged, well placed by sign. Okay. In charts, you may have seen a reference to something called the dignity, an exaltation, or a detriment. Um, what that means is like, for example, again, like let's say Sun Leo, that's considered dignified. That is well placed. That is a good placement for the sun to be in because it's naturally in Leo. But if you put the sun in its opposing sign, which is Aquarius, that would be a detriment or fall. That's the funny thing about astrology too, is that older astrologers have different names for things, but it's the same thing. So you learn there's all these different words for what essentially is the same thing. So like detriment and fall are the same thing. It just means that it's in the opposite sign, or it can mean that it's afflicted. Like say if it squares Mars at 29 degrees Taurus, then it would be afflicted. But you look at all these things, it tells you more about the first house. Let's see. It says you take everything into consideration.